Tonight, the first round of mail-in ballots are counted in the provincial election, with 2 constituencies still too close to call. Also, the University of Saskatchewan has issued a health alert for whooping cough.
I paint a lot. I paint every day.
Plus, a Saskatoon psychiatric nurse says painting with coffee helped him heal after a brutal attack.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Wednesday, October the 30th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thank you for watching. Hundreds of thousands of ballots were counted on Monday, and today, those sent in by mail and received by October 26th were added to the total. Election workers started tabulating this morning in Regina. The result, CBC can project 4 seats for the NDP and 1 for the Saskatchewan Party. As Adam Hunter explains, 2 races are still too close to call.
This room in Regina was the big focus on Wednesday for the Saskatchewan Party and NDP. Heading into today, CBC had yet to project 7 winners in the provincial election. After the initial mail-in count, 5 have been decided. Mail-in votes have finalized gains for the NDP in 3 Saskatoon seats: Silver Spring, Southeast, and Chief Mistawassis. The NDP have also picked up Regina, Wascana Plains. In the process, 2 more Saskatchewan Party cabinet ministers, Christine Tell and Paul Merriman, have lost. That means all 5 cabinet ministers in Regina and Saskatoon were defeated. The Saskatchewan Party is projected to hold on to Prince Albert Northcote. As for the election itself, the province's chief electoral officer is pleased with the process.
Overall, it went very, very well. We trained very well for this election, and I think that showed across the province.
One of those challenges was the trickle in of city results, which did not get reported until more than 2 hours after polls closed. Boda says extra workers were brought in to speed up the hand count.
In the end, the chief electoral officer makes recommendations for change. It is the legislators who make those decisions, so ultimately they decide on the system itself.
2 races remain too close to call: Saskatoon Westview and Saskatoon Willow Grove. The NDP, after the mail-in count, has flipped Saskatoon Westview by 37 votes. Willow Grove remains a Saskatchewan Party lead by more than 170 votes. If things hold, the final count would be 34 seats for the Saskatchewan Party, 27 for the NDP. But we won't know that answer until November 9th. That's when the final count will take place. Adam Hunter, CBC News, Regina.
Some families and transgender teens say they're worried about what another Sask Party government means for them. Pratush Dayal reports.
Biological boys will not be in the change room with biological girls.
On October 17th, Scott Moe made that promise, declaring it is his Saskatchewan Party's first order of business, saying they would establish a policy that would restrict students' use of change rooms in schools to the sex assigned at birth. This is just a step backwards. Now, post-election, people are hoping for a pause.
It does seem like Scott Moe is just pushing trans kids farther into mental health struggles.
This family moved into Saskatoon from a rural area to escape transphobia the 12-year-old was facing. Now they worry about having to move again.
We should just have neutral spaces for kids that are non-binary, transgender, and this just moves the mark farther and farther away from spaces that can include everybody, ultimately.
I spoke to many trans teens and their families about this. A trans girl in a Saskatoon school told me she worries for her safety, changing in a boys' change room. A mom of another trans teen told me she's considering leaving the province entirely should this policy become the law.
From self-harm and suicide.
This outgoing Regina City Councillor wrote a letter to Moe and didn't hold back his feelings.
Essentially what I said is, I believe that you're intellectually and politically impotent because you cannot handle these serious issues and you deserved it.
It is going to be dark.
2 LGBTQ+ groups are also voicing their opposition.
We know that he's discriminating the most for the most vulnerable people.
This University of Saskatchewan professor worries about the future.
Saskatchewan now remains an outlier, continuing to put forth anti-trans policies.
For now, it's a waiting game to see if this is in fact the new Sask party government's first order of business. Provincial, CBC News, Saskatoon.
With the provincial election mostly in the rear view, attention is turning now to civic elections. Municipalities throughout the province are set to head to the polls on November 13th at an event Wednesday where Sandra Masters released her re-election campaign platform. She spoke about the perception of an urban-rural divide.
There's been some discussion about that urban-rural divide. Our city depends on southern Saskatchewan. Between the airport, events like Canadian Western Agribition, from advanced manufacturing, value-added agriculture, agri-tech, we depend on those dollars coming in and having them spend some time in our city.
Masters' comments come as advance polls for municipal elections are set to open in Regina and Saskatoon. Advance polls in both cities will open Friday and run through Monday. In Saskatoon, polling will operate from noon until 8 in the evening. In Regina, polls will operate from 10 in the morning until 6 at night. Check out the city's websites to find the nearest polls closest to you. And tomorrow, the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations will have Election Day. The FSIN represents 74 First Nations across the province. There are candidates running for chief, first vice chief, and also third vice chief. And it comes amid a plan to conduct a forensic audit of the organization, announced earlier this year by Indigenous Services Canada. Saskatoon Tribal Council Chief Mark Arcan says regardless of who wins, the FSIN needs more transparency and accountability.
We encourage everyone to go out and vote. It's going to be a large election. It's going to be probably 1,000+ voters. So encourage everybody to come and represent their nations and have the opportunity to voice their opinion. Whoever they select is their choice, and we support that. It just let's make sure we get everybody out there to make a decision and do what's best for the organization.
For the top position, chief of the FSIN, there are two people running. Incumbent Bobby Cameron from Witchican Lake First Nation and third vice chief Ali Bear from Whitecap Dakota First Nation. Whooping cough cases are on the rise across the country, including right here in Saskatchewan. As Laura Sharpaletti reports, health experts are worried about the illness spreading from students and adults to infants and the immunocompromised.
The University of Saskatchewan has issued a health alert for whooping cough, also called pertussis or the 100-day cough. The illness usually starts out like a cold or a flu, but health experts say it can lead to a great deal of misery.
Because pertussis can last 100 days. It can cause somebody to cough so hard they can practically vomit from it. And because the airway is so inflamed, the cough sounds like a shotgun. And then finally, when they take that deep breath in, it creates that whooping sound. That's actually what it sounds like.
The Public Health Agency of Canada says more than 12,000 cases were reported between January and August. That's way above the 500 to 4,500 nationwide infections typically reported each year. In Saskatchewan, as of September 30th, 60 pertussis cases have been reported this year. A physician at the U of S's Student Wellness Center says the uptick in whooping cough there is concerning, not just for the students.
Kids usually get vaccines as part of their immunization, but infants, like less than 2 months or so, they don't have immunity. So if they get whooping cough or pertussis, then because they don't have an immune system to fight against that, they can see more complications.
The Saskatchewan Health Authority says getting antibiotics early in the infection is key.
After 5 days after you started that antibiotics, you're not going to spread it to anyone anymore. So right off the bat, that's the first thing that we can do when we know that someone has pertussis. But we don't stop there. We start looking around them. We start connecting with the individuals who are in their day-to-day and who might be at increased risk.
Experts say most Canadians are not aware that there's an adult vaccination for whooping cough, but all adults should have one dose as well. Laura Sharpaletti, CBC News, Regina.
Canada Post presented a new contract offer to the union representing its workers today in an attempt to avert a postal strike. Canada Post's latest proposal includes wage increases of 11.5% over 4 years, as well as protections for current employees on pensions, job security, and health benefits. Negotiations have been going on for a year. Last week, the Canadian Union of Postal Workers voted overwhelmingly in favor of a walkout if a new contract could not be reached through bargaining. They will be in legal strike position on Sunday. You can really feel fall in the air these days, especially at night when the sun dips down so much earlier than summertime. This is how it looked in Saskatoon today. The season's finally leaning more into fall than summer, even with the warmer temperatures. So, how will the rest of the week shape up? Ethan will have your forecast after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. With the road to the Grey Cup beginning on Saturday, the individual awards continue to pour in for the Saskatchewan Roughriders. 8 players picked up 9 divisional All-Star, All-CFL honors in the West, and no surprise, the standout was Roland Milligan Jr. as he picked up 2 nods, halfback and special teams player. He led the CFL in interceptions with 8 and was 3rd in the league in special teams tackles with 20. Other nominees include Trevor Harris, Samuel Emelis, Logan Furland, Micah Johnson, Jameer Thurman, CJ Rivas, and Marcus Sales.
Incredibly proud of all those guys. You know, I know it's kind of coach speak to say, you know, everybody works hard, but they do, and they have. We've asked a lot of guys to step up, and extremely proud of those guys, you know, to get acknowledged for their individual work. But in totality, you know, the individual stuff, you bring it all together. I know what they want as a team. So we celebrated it a little bit this morning, and then it was business as usual.
The Green and White will be close to full strength as they prepare to host the West Division semifinal. Kickoff Saturday against BC at Mosaic Stadium is at 4:30. The PWHL says it is looking to add expansion teams for next season. That means the original 6 could soon be joined by 2 more teams. A league executive says the PWHL is looking at several cities in both Canada and the U.S. and is open for applications. Quebec City has expressed interest in a franchise team. Calgary has the potential to lace up too, the former home of the Inferno before the Canadian Women's Hockey League folded in 2019. In the States, cities like Washington, Philadelphia, and Seattle are all being considered. A Saskatoon man's life changed in an instant when he was attacked by a patient back in 2018. Chris Relitz is a veteran psychiatric and ICU nurse and was brutally beaten, suffering multiple injuries. It left him unable to work, and it's been a long road to recovery. But 19 months ago, Relitz started painting a new life for himself as a painter using a unique material.
Purpose and peace. I was just kind of going about my job, and I got sucker punched. I got knocked out with that first punch. He blindsided me over my shoulder. I was out cold, and he got on top of me and just kept hitting. And so eventually things were pretty mushy, bones were shattered, and this eyeball it was pushed in and under behind my nose. There was no way I could read, there's no way I could work. Just things, my life was pretty unhappy, pretty ugly. I had this paint by number kit. I had this cheap little dollar store brush that came with it, and I had coffee. I took that paintbrush and I was left with a pretty darn good painting of the barn that was on the land my father had when he was a boy. He had this photo of this barn. I have a reason to get up in the morning now, like rather than lying there feeling like a failure at 50 years old. Like I said, my wife and friends are all getting up and going to work, and I was, I don't know, just out to pasture, thrown away, discarded, disposable society, all sorts of rotten thoughts. I felt quite useless. And then now that I've got the painting, I paint a lot. I paint every day. And I got a big show coming up, so I've got all my pieces out. There's pain relief, there's anxiety release, and I still have once in a while some post-traumatic stress from the assault, from the attack. And that just flows right off me now with the painting. I was really happy with my results and getting some good compliments. So I've just kept doing it. Now, it's 19 months later since I started painting with coffee. I've produced maybe 200 pictures. I've done a lot of pet portraits. People's animals pass on and they need something to remember. I've done, maybe a couple dozen portraits of people's grandparents or parents that have passed on, and I'm really happy to do that. Like, I feel like, maybe these folks are finding some peace through what I'm doing, because I brought a lot of comfort to folks as a nurse, and that's, I think, in my nature.
The weather update is brought to you by Capital Ford Lincoln. Our greatest auto sale is on now.
And weather specialist Ethan Williams joins me now. We have moved from iced coffee to hot coffee weather.
Yeah, in an instant, just like that, it seems. This morning especially, temperatures pretty chilly across parts of the province. And, well, in Regina, looked something like this. It was chilly, but it really did actually bring out the beauty of these gorgeous kind of a little bit of frost on the trees this morning. And I want to thank Alan Tidball who sent in this photo. But yeah, the temperatures a little frigid. In Regina, we were kind of around -7, -8 at times overnight last night. If you were in Broadview and Weyburn, you were closer to -10, feeling like -13, -14, feeling even cooler than that in parts of northern Saskatchewan, where you were down around -17 in places like Uranium City and Collins Bay, where you almost hit -15 overnight last night. And here's the thing, I think you might be doing that again tonight in the far north, because you can kind of see where the frontal boundary is here, right kind of dividing the north and south of the province. We have temperatures near freezing in the Churchill region, dropping into the minus single digits into the north. But then you look at south and central, and it's a totally different story, because we have temperatures jumping above the 10-degree mark again in places like Regina and Swift Current and Leader, and almost 12 degrees in some spots. A little cooler in central regions, but that is pretty much bang on seasonal for this time of year. Along with that, a nice sunny day for many of us as well, or at least not a whole lot of clouds sticking around. Again, it's in the north where we've been seeing that, in a few flurries kind of from time to time. But overall, our weather picture fairly quiet, save for a little bit of some cloud cover over these next couple of days. This will start building in tomorrow morning as you head out the door in south and central Saskatchewan, but we're not really expecting any moisture with this. I think we're just kind of looking at the cloud lingering, and then as the kids head out the door for trick-or-treating tomorrow, yeah, maybe a few breaks of clear skies here and there, but I think a mostly cloudy night as we'll expect, but nonetheless a pretty nice night for trick-or-treating. Then things clear out nicely as we get into Friday, and even the first bit of Saturday, I think, is going to be quite nice skywise. To the north, I think we'll be seeing a little bit of cloud moving in then. There is a little bit of a system that's going to be skirting some northern locations as we get into later Friday. That shouldn't impact Halloween tomorrow, but maybe a centimeter, especially in some far northeastern sections. But the wind really not going to be much of a factor here the next couple of days as the weather picture stays fairly quiet. What that means is that we're in store for a few more nice days. Don't worry, even as we begin November here, looking quite nice. And for the Riders playoff game on Saturday, well, that'll be stellar weather. Chance of some showers maybe on Sunday before temperatures start to drop off back closer to that freezing mark next week. For Saskatoon, yeah, 3 gorgeous days here, I think, is what we're going to see. We have the better chance of the moisture on Sunday, I think, before things clear out for Monday. And some snow flurries on Tuesday, but those have not been making themselves known all that much this fall, Sam.
It can rain. They can make themselves known later.
Yeah, we got time.
Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Meet Pacey and Dawson. Yes, I think that's a Dawson's Creek reference. The 2 alpacas are the goodwill ambassadors for this year's Royal Agricultural Winter Fair in Toronto. This morning ride downtown to Union Station was to celebrate the fair's return, and judging by the reaction of passengers, the fluffy pair would be welcome to commute with them again anytime. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back. A Cree Métis woman from Saskatoon has received a prestigious award from Canada's Governor General for her work toward gender equality. Over the past 2 decades, Nicole White has launched several legal challenges to fight against discrimination. And more recently, she founded an organization called Moontime Connections to ship free menstrual products to northern communities.
It was incredible. It was an event of a lifetime, honestly. And for it to be presented to me by the first Indigenous Governor General of Canada, Her Excellency Mary Simon, it was just a really special day to have my family and friends there. And I'm really proud to say it was all because of a CBC story. It was in January 2017. I read about young people missing school in northern Saskatchewan because they didn't have access to menstrual products. And sometimes when you hear about issues in the world, it just seems big. It just seems intangible. But this was something I knew we could make some difference in. In our first year, we sent 5 communities about 100,000 products. So since then, we've sent over 4 million products to destinations and northern communities across Canada. This is really, I feel, active reconciliation, but also really a generous space of just creating a space for dignity.
And Ethan is back with one more look at your weather, and it's not getting warmer.
No, well, it'll be warmer than we saw this morning. Thankfully, I think tomorrow morning -2 under mostly cloudy skies, feeling like -7, and then by the afternoon already jumping up to a high, or well, that's not our high. It's 5 degrees tomorrow. I think is what we'll see. We'll be closer to 10 degrees by the afternoon, and more treats than tricks with this forecast for Regina for all the Halloweeners tomorrow at 6:30. We're looking at a temperature of 4 degrees. Might even see the moon through that thin veil of clouds as well, adding to the spooky factor. Freezing mark tomorrow in Saskatoon and hitting 7 degrees already by the noon hour with a bit of a breeze, and a pretty similar forecast for all the ghosts, ghouls, goblins, and mini Beetlejuices out there that'll be taking to the streets. 3 degrees. Pretty nice night for those out on the street, Sam.
Are you going to dress up tomorrow?
You'll have to tune in to see.
And that is what we call a tease. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And that is it for us tonight. For more on the election mail-in count, head to cbc.ca/Sask. You can check out the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel or download the CBC News app. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow for Halloween.